What's going on, everybody? We are back from a little hiatus. Thank you guys for being patient and waiting for the next episode. We are back with Mental Health Mondays with myself, Sharif, and the homie. Yes, he's on that side of the screen, Metisfaction himself. Today, we are joined by an amazing guest from across the pond, Mr. Paddy's Potato Peelers.
Yes.
Just
Hello,
incredible.
everyone.
Absolutely incredible. Now, before we get into it, just wanted to let you guys know and remind you, as we typically do, we are not mental health professionals. We're just regular Joes who are just trying to share stories from our community with the hope of helping anybody out there and helping each other grow and inform one another. If you are having any issues and you need some help, please, if you're in the US, dial 988 or seek medical help as soon as possible. Please don't rely on us for any professional medical opinions. We're just, as I said, some regular Joes. Now, please be well. Remember, people love you. There are people out there to support one another, just even within this community.
Yeah.
And with that, let's get into it. Welcome, Mr. Paddy's Potato Peelers.
What an introduction. I'm going to get Justin to do that for me every week.
I love when Sharif does it.
It's really lovely to be on your show. I watch it religiously every week since it started. I think it's an amazing thing you're doing. And not so much as an amazing thing, it's just a place where people can find, and the honest, if you can get one person to get over a hurdle once a year, that hurdle could have been a momentous part of his life. And sometimes you'll never know that, but you've done it. And that's all we need to do. You don't need to save 5,000 people. That would be great. And if it happens, wonderful. But it only needs one person to be, helped through a certain circumstance, and that's it. And if you think like that, the less imposing this is. It's just a chat. And if you get something from it, like you're saying, you've got to go to a mental health professional if you have problems. And I will always say, right through my my recovery from quite a few different things, I've always had to go back to that mental health. God, my teeth are slipping. I've always had to go back to that mental health expert in whatever genre my problem has been at that time, because I don't have the capacity to sort anybody out, never mind myself.
Yeah.
I mean, I think a lot of us with mental health problems are very complex people. We're not simple people. We're usually complex, and we can oversimplify our problem. We can make it tiny when it's huge. Do you know what I mean? Or we can make it huge when we don't have to. So it's our brains are not. Well, my brain. I'm just going to speak about me. My brain's not set up to have any sort of good thinking. I always have to rely on other people to sort me out when I'm down. I very rarely get out of it just by myself. No, and saying
a
that,
lot of people. I'm the same way. I can't do this by myself.
No.
Absolutely.
That's why I drag Sharif through it with me.
No, and I'm the same boat, man. I mean, anytime I've tangled with depression, the small things become big things, and the big things become small things, and you put it perfectly. Sometimes you need that additional help to help you sort through it.
We had a saying now when I used to go to meetings an awful lot. I don't anymore now, but we had a saying as my head was like a washing machine. Whenever I've had a problem, whether it's depression, drink, suicide, my head goes like a washing machine. I have no control of the off switch, and that's when everything goes to pot in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And so it has to be other people that help me through that. And should it be my wife or the children, or it has to be usually my wife. Bless her top and top. I have her chained up in the bedroom now. I mean, it keeps her in there. But no, and sometimes and laughing, you can. Life is serious sometimes. Life is and has to be taken seriously. But laughter sometimes is the best way to break that cycle. Sometimes that depression cycle. Sometimes a giggle just for even an hour, it gets you out of yourself for an hour. Like when I do my live videos with Justin, they're the best of the whole lot because we have fun with each other. Even when I'm feeling down, I don't feel like doing the show. Once it starts, the two of us have fun, and it gives me an hour of headspace. And sometimes the problem I had going into it, when I get the other side, it's gone. You know, it wasn't
Yeah.
a problem at all. If that makes any sense to people. So I think we were talking beforehand about hobbies. Shall I give a little bit of? I'll give a little insight to who I am, and then I'll talk about the hobbies if that's all right. I'm 64 years old. I from a child, I suffer from lack of confidence, lack of. I wasn't good enough looking. I didn't have the wit and charm of people that I admired. I didn't seem to match up to anybody, and so I went from being that little quiet boy in the corner in primary school. When I got to secondary school, I went the opposite way. I started mitching school. I didn't go to school much. I started smoking at 10. I started drinking at just between 10 and 11. And I know that sounds crazy, but me and my mate used to steal. He used to steal vodka from his dad's house. We'd go to the park. And I was about, I would say, maybe just 11 the first time I had a blackout. Because the two of us sat and drank this vodka neat out of the bottle. And when I woke up, I was in another part of the park. I don't remember getting there or what I done in between hand. And that's, that's me. I can never do something just gently. It's, go full head on it and that's it. I really, in my sort of, once I got there about 12, 13, I just gave up with school. It wasn't for me. I couldn't do it. So I just mitched and went off, went in the woods with the boys. We got bottles of cider, sat in there, messed about, a couple of girls, And so when I had a few drinks in me, I seemed to be all right. People seemed to like me in my eyes. So I felt comfortable. And as a young lad, that's a really bad way to start doing anything when you have to have alcohol to fit in with a crowd.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't get out of that. I had to have it. Nearly every day I went out, I stole, I done whatever to get money to buy that flagon of cider, to go up into the forest and sit with it on the, do you know the old flagons you used to get? Did you ever get cider?
Yeah.
The old neck, and there's a hook in the top and you put it over your elbow and a big bottle about this size and you sit and drink your flagon. That will last you the day. You know what I mean? So that's a terrible habit. Now, my parents, my dad worked 2 jobs. It was the time of the Troubles here in Northern Ireland, so it was a really dodgy time to get off the rails. Now, thankfully for me, this is going to sound strange. Thankfully, I went to drink and not into the sectarian troubles that were on at the time. My dad was a policeman, so I knew if I got caught anywhere near anything like that, I'd have got battered because it was the days when Dad beat the tripe out of you. There was none of this, oh, you're a bad boy. Off came the belt. What? He was a good dad. I don't know, he wasn't a bad dad. He didn't hit me for nothing. He hit me when I deserved it. No, that's not acceptable today, but it's still acceptable in here to me. But so, I mean, I just drank too long. By age of 17, I knew I had a drink problem. I got kicked out of school at 15. I got expelled. I don't know what you call it in America, but I just got thrown out.
Yep,
and I started work the next day after I got thrown out. My uncle owned a business, and I was always going to go into it from school. He was an electrician, and I started my apprenticeship at 15, and just went to work then. I'd worked in a hotel in the town that had a disco from I was about 12-year-old, serving teas and coffees in the front. Then I went to a waiter. Then I went behind the bar. And by 17, I was doing night porter. Do you know what I mean? So I always had this out to get drink. I didn't have to worry about it. Once I was in the hotel, I filled my bag, left in the morning, sold what I needed to my mates, and that was it. So long story short, I joined the Navy, and for a couple of years, they wouldn't let me join straight away. I joined for a £5 bet in a bar one night. My mate had joined up from school. Really? He was home on leave, and he said, you wouldn't even get through basic training. So good old Paddy, this was me. Right, I'll show you. So the next day I went up, joined up, went up, but they gave me conditions that I had to do. Came home and told my mum and dad that I joined the Navy. How good was that? I was the second year of my apprentice. My dad went ballistic. He went absolutely, you what? I had to get a hobby, and this is where hobbies, I suppose, is an important thing in my life and always has been since then. So I started playing judo, and I became quite good at judo. And the Navy were checking up where I was playing the judo to see, because when they asked me what do you do as a hobby, I said go to the pub on a Friday night, well probably Friday night, Saturday night, play pool and play snooker, darts. So that's not what you wanted to join the Navy when you're 17. That's not so. By the time I got into the Navy, I was 18, and I had sort of wised up a wee bit as I got in. I was doing judo. I wasn't drinking as much. So I got into the Navy, and I loved basic training. Absolutely adored being told what to do, when to get up, when to go to bed. Here's your wages every week. And it was just, and in them days, used to, on a Friday, used to go up, salute the officer, and he handed you your wages in your hand. It was once a fortnight, actually. And that was lovely. There was nothing common. There was no bank accounts or anything like that. People like us didn't have bank accounts, or like me didn't have bank accounts. You just put money in your hand. It all changed. And that's when debt got into my life. But anyway, I went through the Navy. I enjoyed the first part of it. Then I got married. I'm going to say this, and this is, after about 3 or 4 years, I slipped. I was a bit wild again. I was a drinker. I was out in the town with the boys. I met my wife in a pub. She was a drinker. She was even wilder, I think, than I was at the time. And she was I'm trying to think of a nice way. She was a dancer in a rather sawdusty type of floored pub. She got up on the stage and danced. So we ended up, I got drafted on to some, I got drafted up to near London, Kent in England, to a naval barrack there. And she went back home to Wales, where she was originally from. And we got pregnant, but we never found out why. So that was it. My whole life changed again. And at first it was wonderful. I had the children. I loved. It was so great to be a dad with the children. I was at the births. I was all involved. For me, that just didn't last, because having that drinking side, having my lad side was too important. And that's as simple as that. I went back to go down to the pub too many nights during the week, spending money we didn't have for the house, got in trouble, got in debt, and that lasted the whole way through my naval career. And yes, by the last year in my, I was coming out after 12 years, and until that last year, I was completely in debt. I'd done everything wrong. I got busted because I was on ship. I was the policeman on ship. I stole all the money out of my float to pay my beer bill down the mess.
Oh man!
And I could see getting out of that problem. Madness, you know what I mean? Instead of just going and admitting I can't pay your beer bill, I stole paid my beer bill, then went up and said I can't cope, and so I was escorted off in handcuffs by naval policemen, and that's quite embarrassing when you're a naval policeman.
Yeah.
So I was taken up to the cells, got busted anyway. After a couple of months, I got my court martial, but because I'd started to go to AA, once I'd said I'd had that problem, I started going to AA. And the Navy took that into account in my court martial, that I was trying to do something. I still had a young family and a wife to look after. They had taken all my wages off me. I got £20 a fortnight, and everything else went to my wife, and which was, at the time great. But after I was sober about, I can't remember. These might be out in months if you ever hear me talking about it again, because I can't remember half of it, what time scale it was.
Yeah.
But after about 6 months, my wife left me. She couldn't stand me sober either. So it was just. So again, I just felt, what's the point? What's it going to do? Anyway, I lasted a year. When I came out, she had moved down to Wales with the children. I went down to try and sort everything all out. I was about a year sober. I wasn't ready to do what I'd done. Everybody in AA told me not to do it. It's not wise. You're not strong enough to do that yet. If you get let down there by yourself, But of course, Stephen being Stephen, no, I know what I'm doing. I can cope with it. Anyway, I was drunk within about 3 months, and the last thing I can remember in Wales is on the phone crying to my dad and saying it's happened again. I've done it again. I'd lost all the money. I got a lump sum when I left the Navy. I'd spent it all in about 2 weeks. And the last thing I can remember is lying over a church wall. It was a wee small church wall, and I must have fallen backwards. And the next thing I remember, waking up with two young boys, young teenagers, pissing on me, which is not a great way to wake up. And I didn't have the strength to get up off the wall and go and do anything about it. So I was scared. I was absolutely petrified. How could it all come to this? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was on the phone crying to my dad, and he paid from a plane flight to come back over to Ireland again. I live in the north part of Ireland. So I went back home. I couldn't stop drinking. My dad had taken me to doctors to get me into this alcohol unit. I'm not sure what you call it in America, but there's alcohol over here. The alcohol units, the rehabs, were in mental hospitals. They weren't an entity as such. They were all in mental hospital. Most of them. Some of the church-run ones weren't, but most of the others, you went through your doctor and you ended up in a mental hospital. Basically, it was just another part of the mental hospital, which is the right place to be in. So, so that was I'd been in the one in the Navy, and then I was in that one that's when I got sober. But I was back in one after 5 years when I was sober. I had a complete mental breakdown. I had changed my life around. I was at a good job. I had a company car. I was going really well. I didn't cope with relationships or anything that went wrong. Bang, just my head went. And I was either into the mental hospital or I was going to drive it into a wall. And I had 26 miles to contemplate whether it was going to be a wall or the mental hospital. And so thankfully, I made it to the mental hospital. They kept me in for about 6 weeks, which was a blessing because there's no need to. I wasn't drinking, it's a rehab, but I think they knew my story because I'd been in previously and I'd been in the drying out. They were invested in me, if that makes any sense. So they let me come back in, even though I hadn't drank, because I was in a worse state with depression and suicidal thoughts than I ever was nearly with drink. And this was just me. So cut that long story short, and it went on. Well, I've stayed sober all this time. But life doesn't automatically become wonderful just because Stephen has stayed sober. Because if you're not living sober, you can't expect the benefits of being sober. And I have had lots of periods where I haven't lived very sober, and I've paid the benefit, the price for it. My family, I never managed to get a set of twins and two girls. The twins were a girl and a boy. And every time I rang up, every time I tried to get in contact with, or I'd sent Christmas money over or whatever, the kids would come on the phone, and I didn't know at the time, but Mummy was plying them because Mummy was still drinking badly. She just got them on the phone and got them to swear at me and tell me to F off, don't come anywhere near us, we don't want you. And it's really hard to cope with, but it wasn't their fault. It was, big boy has to take responsibility, but it's still hard to cope with, even though it's your problem. So I never managed to get the family back until my kids were about 18. And then they started to come over one at a time to my house over here. And we managed to get some sort of a relationship. It was just, I think my eldest, when I stopped drinking, my eldest was about 8. And then I had one at 5, and then the twins were only about 2, maybe something like that. Again, the numbers might be, but so they started coming over. The 3 girls did. One started, and then the other 2 came. I think just out of interest, I want to see who he is, because they'd been told everything that could possibly be told bad about me, and a lot of it was true, but a lot of it wasn't. So we managed to get some sort of relationship. Then my ex-wife rang me up one time and said, you're going to have to take Lee over there. I can't cope with him here. So Lee ended up coming over to stay with us, and for the first 3 months, it was marvelous. Him and my stepson in the house at that time were the same age. They hit it off like a house on fire, and we had the joy was back in, being a dad again. It was wonderful.
That's good.
But then I found out that the poor lad, he also had quite bad mental health problems. And I was to find out later, he should have been going to somebody his whole life, but he was never taken, or he was very infrequently. So it got to the stage that after 6 months, he wanted to take drugs again, and we have a policy of no drink, no drugs.
Yeah.
Can't happen in the house. We're both alcoholics, and as mean as that can sound to somebody out there, it's the only way I've stayed sober. I don't go to pubs unless there's a really good reason. It has to be a good reason. And if I go to a wedding, I'll go to the wedding reception, I'll go to the first dance, and then I'm gone. And I even done that with my own daughters and stepdaughters. When they got married, we just go, and everybody accepted because that's what we do. And, we're very lucky that the kids all know they have no problems with it.
Yeah.
So
they'd much rather have you there, than not.
Yes.
He went back over to Wales again with his mum. Him and his mum fought the peace out, and I mean physically fought and things like that. And his life just went down the pot. He was taking drugs, he was stealing, he was just doing all the things. He ended up with a prison sentence. It wasn't very long. It was months rather than years. It was just petty theft that he done to get his drugs. But when he went into prison, his mum moved town. Didn't tell him. He came out of prison, went to what he thought was his house, and she wasn't there. And this is where it's a bit of a thing that I'll never really know what happened. The first I knew about it was my daughter rang me up one night. I was sitting in a settee in the front room, and she said, "Dad, something's happened." And when you know something, I just knew. Anyway, she says, Lee's committed suicide. He'd been at a party somewhere, and he just walked into the sea just opposite and never came out. He was washed up on the beach. Some lady in the morning had found him when she was walking her dog. God love her, that must have been a horrible thing to find. That's horrendous.
Yeah.
Anyway, that blew every little thing in my head out of control. I didn't know how to cope with that whatsoever. And the only thing I knew what to do was I had to go over, get it sorted, get him buried in a respectable way, get it all done. And my wife, God love her, as though it was her stepson, and we had a motorhome at the time. I was on a second-hand motorhome, and we ended up having to sell that to pay for the funeral, which is absolutely fine. There's nothing. I'm not saying that for a thing, but for my wife to have to do that, it was her pride and joy that she'd wanted. That's what all she ever wanted in life was a motorhome. We'd always had caravans and camped. But I was really lucky. She stood behind me completely. And we went over, we sorted it all out, sorted the wedding out. We got the funeral sorted out, got it all paid for and covered. And at that time, my father was not long for, he was really bad with Alzheimer's at the time. I'd been looking after him off and on at the time with obviously my mum, but nearly every day I visited him. And he was in a home by then. He'd been kept at home for as long as my mum could cope with him. And 3 months after Lee committed suicide, my dad died. And he was the only person in this world that I wanted to tell Lee's committed suicide. There was nobody else in this world. And I was never able to do it because he didn't understand what was going on. Yeah. He had no idea. He could recognize me right up to nearly before. In fact, I'm nearly sure he knew, but right up to the last day, he would recognize my face when I went in. But I got to pray with him the night before when I was asking. I don't make this religious, but I was asking the Lord, please take him. He just can't suffer anymore. I guess he couldn't eat, he couldn't do anything. He was just a vegetable. And I left that night about 11 o'clock after chatting with him, and I just I got home and I knew it wouldn't be too long, but by the time I got back in the morning again, he passed away about 2 minutes before I get in. So I never got that real. He was still actually warm when I went in. Do you know what I mean? He was in still. So my life, depression then really hit home hard. And I don't want to speak too loud because you'll hear every word I'm saying. But my wife, she had an extra lump of flesh sitting in the front room for years because I didn't want to go out. I didn't want to speak to anybody. I couldn't explain anything that was going on in my head. I couldn't think of any reason why the wee lad had to die. And I took complete blame for all of it. Because, I mean, one of the things when you get sober, you have to be accountable for what you've done, and I overdone that completely. Because it was my fault. It was dead simple in my head, my fault. And there is a lot of responsibility there. He didn't have a good upbringing. But I just went completely out of control where I couldn't even think. I just literally couldn't even think what to do or had any ideas.
Yeah.
So we'll battle through that. It's been a battle off and on since then. I still suffer badly. Sometimes I'll watch some of the TV, and there's an amount of programs where people commit suicide in the sea or drown on TV. Once one of them comes up, I'm bang. It's just right back to that one night. I still remember in the front room. I screamed like a little girl for I don't know how long because there was nothing else I could do. It was just, I just screamed. I got through that with my wife, my kids, I call them my kids and my stepchildren. No, I've been with them now for over 20 years, probably about 28 years. You know what I mean? So they're just my kids, all of them. So they were all just brilliant to me. I found church for a little while, but got badly let down by the minister of all the people in the world, which again is just one of them things that I'm not very good at making friends. I don't trust people. I love casual friendships, and that's where YouTube is fantastic because I can't talk about anything because it's casual. But having close friends is really different. Then I met Justin through YouTube, and we become really good friends, and we share now, So what I always wanted was that now I don't want to put the pressure on Justin now. He's got to listen to Stephen. There's going to be trouble. And I want him to share with me as much as I'll share with him. We send a blend off each other. We have fun when we're around each other. We both love our knives. We love the crack. Other times, we come and sit in the knife room. We might talk about knives for 2 hours, and then we'll talk about them for 10 minutes before we go. But that's lovely. That's really nice. So I've not really had that properly before. So I'm enjoying that side of it. And here I am in Sharif and Satisfaction Show talking about mental health. And that is a real brief outline of my story. I can't tell you how brief that is. But what we're talking about, what I like to talk about is, no matter what problem you've got, no matter what it is, sharing it is the only way I know, and most people that I know who have survived alcoholism, depression, and whatever other affliction, drug addiction, sharing is the one thing you can do that will make something a little bit better just by sharing it. And you mightn't even think it that day, but it'll work. And the more you do it, the better. Asking for help, going to a doctor, going to speak to a mental health nurse, just go to anybody, go to your mum, go to an old school teacher, go to anybody, just talk. And this place is probably one of the best places to talk because you don't have to show your face. We've had, you can have people on that don't have to show their face. If they just want to come on and talk and get something out and let it be heard. Because hearing your story out loud is so much more different than hearing it in here. Hearing it in here is, like I say, the washing machine. Because when you want to tell your story, that washing machine is on full spin cycle. The floor is shaking and you can't sort it out. So that share out is just amazing. The first time you say something and you hear it, it's magic. It's not magic. That's I'm over elaborating. I'm trying to make it all glossy. It's better for that day. And you can see and you can hear other people that maybe have got the same as you or something similar to you. We don't all have to have depression, drugs, alcohol, excessive gambling, anything, all of them have the one thing in common. Is in the end, you go mentally nuts. You know, it doesn't matter what your affliction is. Buy a knife addiction. I mean, you can lose your house through buying knives. You can do as many things as I've done with being an addict at buying anything in a hobby. So sharing that, if that's your problem, but any problem, just getting it out there and hearing what other people have to say. Most people don't give you direct advice, except go speak to a doctor.
Yeah.
If you're not well, you go speak to a doctor. That's it. But they give you maybe other avenues like this to vent, to talk, to maybe meet somebody on here, or somebody will contact you or talk to you. And that will be the person that will help you through that next part of your life. And they're all next parts of your life because, like, my story starts as a child, goes through to, I'm 64 now, and it's still happening. 2 weeks ago, my eldest daughter had a wee go at suicide. She'd been put out of the family home. She's drinking. I mean, the fact that I'm sitting here now shows where the journey has come when I know that I have to talk about it. Like, I'm talking to you here. I don't really know you other than you're on YouTube and you talk about knives. But the fact that I can come on here and get it out in the ether and just see what happens.
Yeah.
Now, I told Justin, my mate, and I've told other people. I've got my wife, of course, I've got my kids. But getting that voice out, and sometimes with a stranger, is the best way.
Yeah.
It's the best way because they don't hold anything of your past. Sometimes your wife or your children, you don't want to tell them things, or you can't tell them exactly how you feel.
Yeah.
I told my wife exactly how I felt after my son died. It would have drove her scatty completely. I think she knew it. I didn't have to verbalize exactly what it was like every single day for years. I couldn't get over it at all. I couldn't move on at all.
Yeah. No, talking sometimes to a complete stranger helps the most. Like a weird little thing from my past was like when I was in high school, I was tangling with depression and ADD and all of that stuff. And I used to be in like online chat rooms, and I ended up connecting to an adult woman on the other side of the country. And she and I, for some reason, just hit it off, and we would talk. And there was no odd dynamic about it. It was just two friends talking, and having her to like just be honest and say, oh yeah, like I don't think I'm going to get into the college that I want. I don't think that I'm worth this. I think that, I'm a piece of crap, whatever. Like just venting and getting it out there and having that perspective of somebody who not related to me, doesn't know my history, can give me a third party perspective. It changed my life. And I wish I could find her and tell her, but it was almost anonymous,
I believe them guardian angels get paid for it in a way that we'll never find out. But I believe it is always going to be in a good way.
I hope so. I hope all the best has come to her because she changed the course of my life, honestly, And
it doesn't matter. This is the one thing about depression or whatever your illness is it doesn't matter whether it's black, white, man, woman. It doesn't matter who you speak to. It doesn't matter whether you particularly like them in the beginning.
Yeah.
It just doesn't. It's just open it and get it out, get started. Even if it's just a tiny wee bit, honestly, it grows. Once you start doing it and you realize the benefits of doing it, and sometimes that can take years for people. So don't think it's automatically all going to go away in a week.
No.
I'm 34 years sober. I still battle with it.
Yeah.
Daily. And that's really not an exaggeration. There's not a day goes past where I don't think of my son. There's not a day goes past that the things that I've done in my past that I regret and I'm ashamed of. They're always in your head. You just have to find a way of coping with it. They don't automatically just go pop and they're all away. Because at some stage, if you lose your job that comes back into your head. Not the fact that the job's the problem. It goes back to whatever's in there before you lost your job.
Right.
If you suffer from, does that make sense? You get thrown back into that depression, panic, and that's when panic attacks would get me. And times I'm in shops and I just have to leave a shop completely because out of nowhere a thought can come in my head, and I can't cope with being with people. I don't like crowds. I don't go out much now, but I'm happy with that. It's my choice. You know, I'm not in here as a prisoner. For years, I sat in that front room chair as a prisoner. Now I can choose if I want to go out. And it'd be more healthy if I went out more. It would, probably. Less pain up here if I stay in a bit more. Just have the family around or go to their houses. You know, me and my wife don't even go for meals anymore because we're more comfortable cooking in the front room. Do you know what I mean? And it's too bloody dear to eat out now.
Well, yeah, I just... Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Ben. No, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No.
I was just going to say, you're right. I'm talking to strangers. Because we had our live on Monday. And it ended up talking about motivation, which I had none, to doing like weight loss stuff. And all the people in the chat and even through messages were like, you know, you could do it. You could do it. You could do it. And so that was Monday. Tuesday I started, and you know, Wednesday I'm still going, and I still get, you know, messages and people who I don't talk to that often are like, you got this, you could do it. So it's good because all these strangers are coming together to support this guy, and then I could support them, and we could just keep supporting each other, and it's just awesome. And it wouldn't have happened if I didn't share with all these strangers.
Yeah,
my addiction is food. Oh, and that's my struggle every day.
If I can put it in a flowery description, the Monday night thing started off like two gardeners, you and Matisfaction, two gardeners planted a wee seed. And that seed, over that space of a couple of hours, that seed just grew. Like watching a garden blooming into so very romantic, but that's what it was like. It was like sticking the little seed in and watching it come up. And so many people with not just the one problem of needing to diet, there was people who needed to put on weight. It affected them the same way as affected you. And that's what, if I could get that across, there's no two people there's very few people that don't have some sort of issue that is mental involved.
Yeah.
Very, very few people out there. Now, a lot of these normal people that I think are normal, 10 years down the line, I find they're not quite as normal as I thought they were. Yeah. And they're the ones looking for help. And to be there for them is nice.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the joy of trying to work on you. Being there for somebody else gives you so much pleasure. So much pleasure.
And you know what? You bring up a good point, because people were like, oh man, I can't gain any weight. And then people like me, we're just used to go, I wish I had that problem. But to that person, it's a serious problem.
Yeah, it's a lifelong struggle.
And I just coast right over it like it's nothing. And then, you know, that's a good point.
It is a huge problem worldwide. From people starving to people overeating and everything in between. I mean, every country has people who are starving and overweight. And it's just, you've got this mass of people in between. And all it is how you cope with it.
Yeah.
All it is how you cope with it. And it takes a strong mentality, I think, to go through life with no problems. Anybody that goes through life with no problems, see it to it straight away, get up there and share what you're doing. I mean, because I think it's impossible. Life's not built to do that. We have changed life so much now from manhunter. We were talking about, from hunter to veggie, sitting in front of a computer all day. You can run your business from it. You can have your entertainment from it. You can have your socializing from it. Yeah. And you don't have to move from here. You don't have to move from here. No. And sometimes it takes that thump upside of the head, get up and do something. But when other people are doing it with you, as you said, it makes it so much easier.
It does.
And I'm stubborn. I love a bet. I love somebody challenging me to do something. Even if it's a small problem. Oh, I bet you couldn't do that. I'll have to want to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I personally, I genuinely don't think that there's anybody who goes through life without some degree of challenge. And if they say that's the case, oh, my life is blessed, I have no challenges, they're lying to you. They're completely lying to you.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
the question is, how have they developed methods to cope? How have they developed methods to get through those challenges and get to the other side? And maybe that's what they're not sharing with you, but we should be sharing that with one another. We should be, expressing to one another, like, hey man, I went through that. This is what helped me get through it. And that's how we, I don't know, it's how we level up as a society. Is sharing how we solve problems.
If we can all wear a little badge with our problems that we managed to overcome. A little badge there, and you can walk down the street. Oh, you've got that. Tell me, how easy would life be like? It would just be so easy.
Yeah.
I mean, there's another thing. It's one thing I want to just literally come in my head. I don't often have good ideas. Please let this be good. We should have a Mental Health Monday sticker that people who want it or who want to, who enjoy it can have a sticker, but you must put it in your channel table. That's the
I do
your video table if you've got a YouTube channel, so that people know that you have had problems, but you're getting on with them. And that, to me, that would be a lovely way of just, here, put your mark down there. And maybe it'll give people a chance to somebody to talk to if they relate to something. They mightn't relate to you two, which I don't know how they wouldn't. But if they see somebody like old Paddy down the corner and they'll see a mental health sticker, they know he's got problems. And
dude, I love that idea.
I'm writing it down.
Yeah, Maddie, get on me. I'm going to design that sticker.
I was just about to say, I'm going to make him do it.
Yeah.
Just put "I am mental" on it.
I like that idea.
It'll make you smile. I am mental.
And it would show solidarity in the community.
Yeah.
Like, we all have a struggle. And maybe that's a sign, like, hey, reach out to me if you need to talk. Or I can reach out to you if you need to talk.
Yeah.
Not everyone has a channel. And so they might not have that outlet, but maybe they could see that. It's like, like the bat signal, except the mental health signal.
But if they see somebody they like as a person, as a YouTuber, you normally find they can have a reasonable conversation because they like each other to start with, or one likes the other. So just a
dude, I really love that idea. I really love that idea. We're going to get on that.
You can go on for days and days talking about how bad your life was. And sometimes I wonder if I'm just exaggerating how bad mine is. And then some days I step back and think, no, you're not. That's been shit. That's been really shit. But you see, if you don't, sometimes I'm smiling and inside I'm saying, this is not right. But I know it is, because if I didn't, I would go and see him.
Yeah.
If I didn't have this outlet of just my YouTube channel and that hobby, do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I have to do something that makes me get up and want.
And you have that camaraderie and joy. I see it in your face when you hang out with like RJ on his live and Thrifty and all them.
Yeah.
I have a ball. I mean, just for that hour that I'm on, I'm having a ball. It's because I'm not thinking about Stephen. Stephen is his own worst enemy, and he's really bad to Paddy sometimes.
See, that's kind of how I treat like my Wednesday lives. Like, we used to talk knives because I'm a knife channel, but then I started like it's more of like a hangout, and people just talk. They just chat, and it could be about anything. I mean, one day we talked about movies, and then another day we did talk about knives, and another day it'd just be dad jokes the whole time. I mean, we did. One person was not feeling good. They were down in the dumps. Yeah. And then somebody told a dad joke, and then for the next 2 hours was just nonstop dad jokes. It was, but it built that person up. It was awesome.
And look, it's like nice people when they meet up. Yeah, you can talk about knives for so long, but then you want to find out more about the person you're talking to. So inevitably it'll split up into something else. And that's what YouTube is for me. Is I can talk about knives all day long. I love my knives, but you see, if you want to split and talk about anything, I'm quite happy to talk. That's why half of mine, I start off on something and I just go off on a wee tangent somewhere. I'm off just somewhere in my own wee world. And people put up with it. Do you know what I mean?
That's because they're all in the same boat. Knives are fun, but sometimes it's nice to just forget the world and just chat with another person.
I feel the beauty of communities in general. It's interesting. Like I've been part of like niche communities a lot, be it cars, drones, knives, etc. And yeah, at a certain point, you can only nerd out about the specific topic for so long without trying to actually get to know the person.
Yeah.
And that's where the real depth of connection kind of like comes in, and the joy of being part of that community, like the people I've met. I mean, like this guy, this guy, like has been amazing, and like now I'm getting to know this guy right here, and it's absolutely amazing, and
you think of how many people are sitting at home watching this wee screen, alone, feeling down, feeling lost, feeling as if they failed at everything. And if that one of them people out there just even make a comment on Monday night and say, "Hiya, I watched your show. I felt the way you're feeling, but I'm going to try and do something about it." That would be amazing.
Yeah.
I really encourage you, even if you just do that, you don't have to speak. Just say, "I feel like you felt. Something hit on me that you said, but I'm going to try and do something about it." That would just make my life. One person would make not well. I suppose I'm exaggerating with it, as I tend to do.
No, I agree.
Royal wave given there.
Me and Sharif always said, even if it helps just one person.
It is. It's so small.
A lot of times it's been this guy that it's been helping.
Yeah.
I mean, last Monday it probably did save my life, because I am changing my course. Instead of dying at 50, I hope to live to be 150.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with smoking. I'd smoked from I was 10-year-old until I was about 50. I think it was. What did I stop smoking? About 55, love? Oh, she's sleeping. I was in my 50s when I stopped smoking, and I was quite a heavy smoker. And I had to stop smoking because it was going to kill me. I was coughing all the time. I was getting bad chest infections. It was affecting every part of my life. But I went the opposite way then. I started going running and doing things which nearly killed me. My knees went everything. So I do tend to get, all my life it's been getting me things like you're saying, like hobbies. Like since I've been sober, I've played golf, snooker, I've rugby. I tried to go back to rugby again when I was 30 odd, nearly killed me. I was playing with grammar school boys of 18 and they could run around me 3 times before I hit them.
Rugby's
brutal too. Just go head on in, do you know what I mean? When I started golf, I practiced till my hands bled at the driving range.
Yeah.
What normal person does that?
Well, I'm quickly learning you are an all-in guy.
Absolutely.
You joined the Navy on a $5 bet. I mean, you are all in or nothing. So, I mean, when you say you're going sober, it sounds like that is it. You're going to work every day for it. So, I mean, that's... But
the other thing I am is a bit of a quitter sometimes. And then I feel that's when depression starts. When I don't give it, there's another lead into depression.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be bad. It just has to be one tiny little thing, and I can get the bad out of it very quickly.
Man. No, I a lot of what you're saying I resonate with.
It is so easy to pull negative into your head. And the world is set up for it because the world is negative at the minute. There's wars, there's floods, there's nothing positive on the news. You actually leave the news feeling depressed now.
I don't even watch it.
The world is set
I don't either.
Bad.
Yeah. No, it's the thing is, like I like what you're saying with the hobbies and the sort of like things to occupy you, because we were talking a little bit before this, and I was saying it's something that's distinctly how the male brain is wired. We need purpose. We need a job. We need a task, even if it's self-imposed, and that's how we get out of our own heads. That's how we pause the washing machine sometimes. And it's an excellent method.
I do like that. I'm going to picture it now.
Some of the hobbies that I failed at was bushcrafting. I started bushcrafting. I could go by myself in the forest with a hammock, put a tarp up, and I was by myself for the night. And I could go home the next morning, and I had Stephen time.
Yeah.
But it wasn't enough, because after a while of doing that, you become this, well, I really want somebody else to do it. And then you get down because you can't find anybody else to do it. So I moved on to another hobby. And it was part of the bushcrafting was the knife and knives work. Then I went into collecting knives. And this has been so much better. So much.
A little bit more expensive, too.
I have to say, I'm pretty good with my knife money. It's, I don't have a whole lot of extra money, but what I've got for knives, it's for knives. And I know if I want most knives, I can save up for if I want them. Now, I might have to save up for a couple of months, but that's absolutely fine. You know what I mean? There's no problem. And after 6 years, I had that many knives at one stage. I had to start selling. I had no room to put them anywhere. They were everywhere. Because when I Chinese used to send you 5 a week, and you were trying to get your videos done just so as you keep getting the knives. And I had to just stop that because it was doing my head in. I don't have very many companies that I let give me knives now. Very few companies. I have maybe, I've maybe 2 or 3 that give me knives quite regularly, like once a month or something. But I've other ones that give me them every now and then, and I'm quite happy with that. But I mean, you can get a bit much. Yeah, you can make anything just complicated. Sometimes you have to say, right, that's it. I'm just going to step back from buying for a while. I'll sell. If I want to buy a knife, I'll sell something, then buy it. And once I got that into my head, what a simple way that is to, all right, you lose a bit of money, but I have that extra bit of money I can put to it if I want. I'm lucky that, you know what I mean? So
that's good, yes.
So I needed to do that for me, for my mental health. So even though this is a great, and we're saying how great it is, you can still go down a slippery slope. Even on this great sort of hobby, you have to keep on check of what you're doing because
it's easy to get carried away.
And that's even one of the reasons why I try and talk about it like on my channel. We can get so caught up in just buying and this is the latest hype thing. I want to get it, and then it's cool for about a week, maybe a month, and then you're eyeing the next thing, and there's the new one that everybody's talking about, and I don't know. I found it so much more fulfilling to be like you, where it's like, okay, I'm not going to buy anything for several months, and I'm going to save, and then I'm going to get exactly what I want, and I'm willing to pay a bit extra for that. And
definitely,
like even now, I'm getting to that stage where I'm selling off stuff because I'm like, you know what? I don't use this. I don't carry it. There's things that I've always wanted, and I'm going to go for them. And when I get them, I'm done. I don't need all of the hype.
All these things are mental health problems because when you're not happy with something, everything else can join in, and it only takes that one wee thing to trigger something else, then something else, and next thing you know, you're sitting in a chair for 2 days thinking, well, what am I going to do now? It's just gone. That's how depression hits me. It goes from I can be as high as a kite, and then the next thing it is there's nothing right with this world. Right. And sometimes it takes months to go away, sometimes a week, sometimes the next day, but it does hit you, and for different amount of times, whatever you're feeling at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know whether anything else. I mean, sometimes I honestly think I'm a basket kid. I really am. I need I would actually need a mental health nurse to follow me around and just say, Stephen, don't go there.
Actually, wouldn't be a bad idea. That would give me a lot of trouble sometimes.
Yeah, but it would cost me about $100 a day, and I can't afford that.
No, it's funny you mention that because, man, I can never remember the author or philosopher who originally said it, and he said that the concept of the devil, like the devil on your shoulder, right, came from your negative internal thoughts. That's the origin of the concept, and that part of you that's always speaking that negative, it's like the monkey on your shoulder, and it's always going to be there. The key is really trying to figure out how to cope with that son of a bitch, and tell him to F off sometimes, because what he's telling you is not reality. It's what you perceive, but it's not where things actually are, because you do have that inability to perceive things correctly, at times. Like we were saying, you need to have that mental health professional, but that's one of the ways that I've learned to cope is sometimes I'll talk to that voice. I'll respond to that voice in my head saying that I'm a piece of crap. I'm not going to achieve anything. I'm not going to do anything good. I'll tell them, like, screw you. No, I'll prove you wrong, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to achieve that, that's one of my coping mechanisms with it,
Yeah, that's facing up to anything. Yeah, I mean, I think you have to learn. You're going to have to face up to things someday.
Yeah.
A lot of people that I know that have suffered from depression and coming through AA and all them sort of things, getting sober and going into mental health hospitals, they're all really nice people, most of them. Do you know what I mean? You take away the problem, and these people blossom, and you can actually see it just happening in front of your eyes. Yeah. And it's a wonderful thing to see. But the sad thing is that usually after you've solved your problem, sometimes depression can, because you haven't got that. Here's a crazy thought in my head. If there isn't that excitement somewhere, that's an excuse to get depressed. If there isn't that, I have to have wee goals or wee glimmers, just sometimes to pull up and hang on to them. God, I'm doing half goals and everything now. I'm getting very, you just sometimes clinging on to one good thing, whether it be your wife or your children or the child that, just got us, picking something positive to think about.
Yeah.
When all else is going to pot, or even just a tiny thing's going to pot. So exactly what you're saying, Sharif, you have to, that wee devil needs put in his place, and bringing out the good one is the answer.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like, I remember after my last business went downhill, right? Like, I had a major contract that I was going to sign with this company. My entire business depended on it, and they went bankrupt in the span of a week, which tanked my company. It took me a year or two, and then I figured out I could license my designs to the knife companies. And you have no idea how much that first licensing meant to me. That first contract, that small win, completely changed my life, because I was able to go from being in this completely negative mind state, like, oh, what am I going to do? How am I going to build back, my confidence? Getting that first contract was just the glimmer of hope. And then that gave me an opportunity to look for another good in my life, and then another good and another good. And then now I'm much more confident and much more happy as a result. But you're right. It's all about those small glimmers of goodness.
I have a sponsor here, the best saying, when I used to go to him and I said, but I'm bored. I'm sitting about the house all day. I'm absolutely bored. He says, you know what to do? Go get a bucket, take it up to the bath, fill the bath up, fill a bucket of water up, take it downstairs, throw it out the front door, go up to the bathroom, get a bucket, fill it up, go down to the front door, throw it out the room. Repeat until you stop saying I'm bored.
I make my kids do that.
No, it's just a thing. I had a father, which is really, my father was very few friends because he worked and he just worked so much. He didn't have time for friends because he had his family. He was a good father, always worked to keep the family there. But he was never ever bored. He was never ever looking for something.
Mm-hmm.
He had that nice balance. Now, he could be a bad-tempered kid because he worked really long hours. But I mean, that was the worst he could be. You know what I mean? So, I think that's why I always, when I think of him now, he had Alzheimer's is a bad way to die, but when I think of him now and how I felt then, he puts a smile on my face. It does. It just puts a smile on my face, because he didn't get it easy, but he managed to just do it without. I never seen him over fussed, over bothered, over sitting down and saying, "Oh, everything's all just nothing." I always wanted to be that person, but it really has taken a lot of years to realize that there's very few people like that. And I know his problems. He just covered them up better than anybody else I know. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think what would he have done, because he wouldn't have talked to anybody. He was real old school. Don't talk to anybody. I'm so glad he didn't have them, because I don't think he would have had the ability to go and talk to somebody. Now, he might have proved me wrong, but I think the talk in this channel, anywhere you can find a little bit of solace where for an hour you can sit and listen to stuff. And here's another thing. Don't listen for the things that you haven't done. Listen for the things that do relate to you. There's plenty of things you'll not have done yet. And in most circumstances, if you continue in the line that you're at, you'll come across them and you'll not be able to cope with them because you've thought about them so much. And it's negative. It's just, I lost my train of thought there completely. There's the mental side. Come back.
I do that all the time.
Oh, you have no idea. Well, let me tell you, it gets worse as you get older. Getting older is not for sissies. It's definitely not.
I'm already super forgetful.
When I got sober, I didn't realize how much I had lost of my brain cells. I have a memory that's, a goldfish would seem intelligent. I don't think I could get halfway around the bowl before I'd forget everything that has happened. And that's something I find hard to live with now, because I can't get this technical stuff. I just cannot get it. People laugh at me and they come on to tell me, but Paddy, I cannot do it.
Yeah.
And it's another thing that for a long while depressed me, because I just couldn't, I didn't know why I couldn't think like other people, but it was simple. It was alcohol. It completely idled my brain. It was just put in the, complete. And sometimes you have to give yourself a break. And when I get like that, I think, yeah, but I'm not drinking. All right, I can't work a computer, but I'm not destroying my family life now. I'm quite responsible now. And that's when you start to fill in the gaps. And that's what you've got to find out as soon as you can, is what sets you off on a wrong path and and it's finding that way to just creep back in again. When you get feeling down, find a way to ease your way back in again.
It's funny you mentioned that, because it's so easy to talk to yourself about all the things that you're not, but very few people talk to themselves about the good things that they are. I'm a good person. I respect people. I treat people with, respect and dignity. I, have this accomplishment. I have that accomplishment. I wish everybody who's watching this would take a moment and even think about that. Really, think about the positives of you, and it's not an ego thing, but we never do that. We never take stock of, yes, I'm a good person. I'm trying to do things better every single day, and I wish people would do that more often. I mean, I need to be reminded to do that even.
if I can give you an example of how my head works, maybe somebody can. Me and Justin went down to the forest, and we had an absolute. We were down there for about 3.5 hours. We had we only had a cup of tea and a wee fire, and we talked a wee bit about knives. But we just had a chat with our subs, just having a chat.
Yeah.
And I had such a good time. My head was like, even my wife told me when I came in through the front door, it was like a different face the one that left. And I was happy with it. But she noticed the face difference in that 3.5 hours that I was out and came back. But what she probably didn't know, I don't know whether I told her this or not. I usually tell my wife everything. I'm a bit of a wuss like that. I just tell her everything. But on the way back in the car, at about half a mile from the house, I started to talk about my daughter again and how I was feeling. And just at the end said, didn't take you long to get back there, did it? That from a friend is just wonderful.
Yeah.
He said, come on, you've just had 3.5 hours and now you're back home. You want to have that thought. Now, this was closer to when it had actually happened and all, but it was funny because I'd had my fun, and sometimes I feel, well, that's good enough. You've had your fun. Let's get real. Think about the bad thing again. And why? It doesn't have to be like that.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be like that. So
no, it certainly doesn't. And I think our brains are wired to do that because it's a survival instinct, right? Like we think about and obsess over the negative because in the past, that meant we would avoid pain. That would mean we would avoid danger, And so we would think like constantly, oh, how can I avoid this? How can I prevent this? How can I ensure that this doesn't happen again? But in the modern world, we don't have immediate dangers like that. We don't have saber-toothed tigers or, different wild animals coming after us. And because of that, it slides us right into this obsessional thought process that leads to depression, and you need to make a conscious effort to defeat that, on a day-to-day basis,
And let me tell you, I mean, I've tried to make this all sound very gloomy. My life isn't completely gloomy at all. I do suffer. I suffer badly with my kids that passed away, my son that passed away, my daughter had that. You can't help stop thinking about that. I can't change
Of course.
You can't help it. Sometimes life is just shit. But it's always going to be shit. Whereas before, I always thought it was going to be shit and getting worse. I'm sorry for the language. You don't turn this around.
No,
it's all right.
But I mean, it's not always going to be like that. If you don't want it to be, and you just have to. It's again, keep fighting. Have little chats with people. If you know people, just have chats like this, where it can go off in whatever degree you're going to go to.
Mm-hmm.
Keep going because it will pass. Do you know what I mean? It will pass. If you wanted to pass, it will pass. And there's not many people wants to end up a depressive because you even know it yourself when you're there. You know you've nothing to offer. You don't have nothing to offer in a conversation when I'm down. I need to get that movement before I can get the conversation going again.
Mm-hmm.
And wives, God, I use my wife more than I use my. I was nearly going to say something that would have sounded absolutely terrible there. I use my wife like my right hand. No, that did not come across the right way. No.
We get what you're saying.
Right hand, my left hand, whatever you want. Hey,
she's your crutch.
Yeah, really is.
Which is good. You need someone you can trust.
But I mean, the nice thing about that is males, as you often say, males tend to go in a wee group of their own, and they just stay in that wee group and huddle there and talk man things.
Yeah.
Whereas you live on your own. Once that wee huddle is broke up, you go home to an empty. Some of my worst depressions when I lived by myself, and you come in, you can have a great day, you close that door, and that's it. There's nothing there.
Yeah.
That's the time that you need to be talking to people. The huddle that you talked about and made fun, had fun during the day. you got to find the release for that when you get home by yourself. Because I think single people are probably the most susceptible being depressed. To me, it's quite scary because you don't. And if you're like me, if you cut yourself off from outside of the family, you're stuck. So getting a hobby like YouTube, getting on, and if you're watching this, there's a good chance you probably like knives. Get involved. You don't have to have 500 knives to be a YouTuber.
No,
I mean, you can have 20 knives, start a channel, and talk about them. Join in. There's so many tag videos out there, which I think are great. I've noticed with the traditional boys at the minute, we're getting so many people coming into the traditional side. Where get in, and they're loving coming in, but they don't have expensive knives. They've got their shreds and they're quite happy. There isn't this jump to automatically want to get a Jack Wolf knife. They're just quite happy collecting cheaper knives because let's be honest, when I first came around, to buy a £50 knife, I thought was madness. That was, it's all over. I mean, you just didn't do that. I mean, now the money I have spent on knives now, it's scary on it,
All $40 of it.
I mean, if you're out there and you are, alone, getting a YouTube channel is probably one of the best things you can do. And joining in with us, just come in and join. You don't have to say anything. Start a channel. Ask somebody to help you and tell you how to. Don't ask me. Ask somebody to help you how to set up a YouTube channel because they tell me it's really easy. It nearly done my pap in. It's just a simple thing. Like, get it started. There's so many tag videos. There's probably 3 or 4 a week that you can join in on, and you only need to share 1 knife or 2 knives or 3 knives to be part of it. So it's getting that feeling out. Knives have a great emotional. You can put your feelings into a knife. I for instance, when my dad wasn't a knife, but he wouldn't have spent £10 on a knife, never mind anything else. But I remember, and I tell this all the time, this was my first really expensive knife that I bought. This is a Hinder Slippy. And when I didn't have anything knife related to my dad, so I thought, well, I'm going to buy him a knife. And every time I take this knife out of the drawer, I'm going to put a smile on my face and think of the good times with him.
Yeah.
It feckin' works. It really does work. Every time I take this knife out, I had made myself from the beginning think of something nice about my dad.
Nice.
That's good.
Absolutely amazing. It works. You can put a feeling into a knife. Now, I might sell it for something else later on, but it's going to be, I'll be buying it for him. He might want to upgrade. Or he hasn't. But yeah, that little story automatically makes me smile when, a lot of last year was just, but that smile can change all that feeling in one go, just one go.
It can. Knives absolutely are emotional. I mean, I've had a bunch gifted to me, and I think about that person every time, and it gives me a smile too. So I get it.
This is terrible. This is gonna sound terrible. I've been so blessed with people in the community that gave me knives when I get started, because I had a budget of about, at that time when I first get started, work wasn't going great. I didn't have a lot of money to spend on superfluous things, so I was just quite happy getting a wee Rough Rider. If I could get one once a week, it was great. But I had so many people give knives to my channel. And the blessings that, look, you see inside, I can't thank him enough, because it kept me going, and it just, until I actually grew into actually really loving the knife community. It took me a while to get in and trust, and them people give me them things. I've still got a few of them left, but I'll have to be honest, I didn't have the money most of the time. At one stage, I had this pile of knives that were all sort of medium to budget, and I had no money to buy any knives, and they were all just sitting there. And I just couldn't afford not to sell some of them. Now, I asked with the knife, look, I need to sell this to keep the channel going. And everybody said, but just sell it then. It's only a knife. I had to build up, a chat. Well, I felt as if I had to build the channel up because you can only on budget for so long, and you do need to, for yourself, you need to move up a wee bit. Well, I did. I speak for everybody else. For me, I needed to get better, just for me, not because I needed. My Rough Rider still cuts every bit as good as my Hinderer, but I don't, and I don't need the Hinderer. I wanted the Hinderer. So I mean, I've had so many, but you want to know every single person that done it? I still remember who done it in the beginning, and that's that's nice to remember. But because sometimes when you said that, I really wanted to say yes, I identify with that, but that would have been just a lie, a lie. I've never had anybody come back and condemn me or anything because I did ask a couple of times. I asked, look, I'm skint. I need to sell some knives. Some people have given me these knives. If anybody objections, please let me know. There's not a problem. I'll get one and send it to you or whatever. So I've never had one person. And that's a really nice side of the knife community. You're not held to judgment by most people.
Yeah, absolutely.
No judgment, especially none.
I think it just makes it so much easier to share when you've got people like that and you meet the ones that you know you're gonna. I mean, we don't have the same knife channel at all, or I don't have the same as you two. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you two have separate sort of channels as well.
Yeah.
But that's the whole point. I mean, I have so many of my friends are still in that budget stage. There's some friends I have are way above anything I'm going to get, but they're still friends, and they still come into my chats and my my podcasts, and they chat away. And the cheapest knife they probably ad's about $1,000. And I literally have one subscriber who's been with me from the beginning, and that's his sort of baseline. And he's been watching my channel for 6.5 years. Go figure. That's the sort of people you want to talk with and share with, and
absolutely.
But the other thing is you have to put yourself out too. You have to be willing to help other people too. So, I'm not saying that's a must in the beginning, because in the beginning you don't have anything maybe to give in yourself, or you feel you don't. But, one sentence from you could help that person who's trying to help you. One little sentence can just click and something's gone. So no matter who you are and what state your mental state is when you come in, you have something to offer. If nothing, it reminds us this is what happens if I don't do something.
That's absolutely true right there.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
Wow.
Very cool.
If there's anything you want to ask, I'm cool, but I'll answer anything. I'm pretty open.
You are excellent. You are full of wisdom, mister.
Oh, no.
No, you may say no.
My wife's response to that will be.
I think Sharif is going to agree with me on this one. You are full of wisdom. You have that world wisdom. You've been through it, and here you are sharing it.
You'll not find an argument over here.
Can I just say what I'm hearing? You've made a right feckin' mess of your life, but you're doing all right now.
Wow.
But that I'm joking aside. I do feel blessed, but also I have to take responsibility for the mess I made of it, and a lot of it's been my own mess. And you have to take responsibility, and I think that's if you accept that responsibility, you can move on. It's when you don't accept that responsibility, it's very, very difficult to move on, because then it was everybody else's fault.
See, there's that wisdom.
Absolutely. And to be honest with you, like you were saying, like, you made a right mess of it. But like, again, I challenge anybody out there to find anybody who's lived their life without mistake, without fault, without bad judgment. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's a fallacy that Hollywood and the media tries to portray. The reality is people are people, from the queen all the way down to the pauper, and like that's the reality, right? Like everybody. has an opportunity to do good. Everybody has an opportunity to do bad. Period. You know.
We all have to and poo.
Yeah. So really, the like you were saying, it's all about how you deal with it. Do you take responsibility? How do you cope with your challenges? You know. So.
Do you know what I think is going to be easier for the next generation that's coming along after us? Is probably we have opened up the way for men to speak more this generation than any other generation in history.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And a lot of that is through really bad things that has brought a good thing out. It's another way to think about, because like you take the amount of wars there has and PTSD and these kids coming back and they're committing suicide, and it's been more and more published now.
Yeah.
Just that simple act alone of going to war and the kids coming back with mental health issues abound. They're just so numerous. You couldn't put just one as one.
Yeah.
But they're coming back now, and people are starting to talk about getting them help. Whereas after the First World War, Second World War, there was no help there.
No.
You just come up and get on with it, or you killed yourself. I mean,
yeah.
What happened was now we're getting to the stage where we're finding out just how many people are killing themselves because the mental health needs to be uplifted.
Yeah.
The mental health. I mean, to be a mental health nurse now must be horrendous because they're just so understaffed. There isn't enough to go around anyway. And the hardest part I found when I was really down was getting a place to see a mental health nurse. Sometimes you were told it's 6 months.
Yeah.
You know, if I had waited 6 months, I'd have been dead. And that's the truth. If I'd have waited 6 months, and it was nearly the anger of being told that made me stubborn enough to maybe break down and talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. But here you can wait 6 months it's actually even longer now to see a mental health nurse.
Yeah. No, I can attest to that. My dad is a chief of a mental health hospital, and it is challenging. There's such a shortage of doctors and nurses and people who really want to commit to these things, especially after our pandemic. And the reality is the incidence and need for mental health support has only grown. So it's like things are going in opposite directions, and that's, I think, one of the reasons that Maddie really kind of got inspired to start Mental Health Mondays, was because we just need to have this as part of the open discussion, really. So
funny. So probably the best 10 years I have had, when I was apart from marriage and children and all that, apart from the house type stuff, is I worked for 10 years in adults with learning difficulties and mental illness. And that was probably the best 10 years because I was given so much by them people. I'm saying them people, my friends that I looked after, yes, but they became friends. It was a big house. The first 5 years was in a big house with about 12 people in this huge big mansion, and we had the staff, and it was just it was the best experience I ever had in my life, to be humbled by people who just, you had to wipe their bum, but they had so much to give you for doing that. It took everything away, all the downsides people put to doing that sort of work. I had such a great time doing it. Such a great time.
That's good. Absolutely.
Well, I think this might be a good stopping point.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we could be with Paddy all day. I think we need to have part 2.
We talked an hour and a half.
Hour and a half.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry about that, boys.
No, don't be sorry.
No, don't apologize.
I have loved every minute of it.
Oh, no.
Yeah, geez.
I mean, you came from a very real place.
It's been nice to see Anne talk to you. That's always a blessing in this.
I definitely appreciate you coming on, Paddy.
Yeah.
No, I thank you. I'm more than happy to come on.
I keep telling people I have a hard time calling people by their real names. I go by screen names. So like you're always gonna be Paddy.
Yeah, I was Paddy in the Navy. They wouldn't call you by you're always called a Paddy in the Navy if you're from Ireland. So, so that's where that Paddy sort of came from.
Okay, see, I learned that now too. Oh,
if
okay.
you're from Ireland, you tend to be called a Paddy.
Well, I appreciate you coming on.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
And I'm sorry, you're going to have to you're going to start your own show now, and I'm going to watch and sit back and relax.
Don't worry. Yeah, it's going to be fine. It's going to be fun. We just keep it relaxed over there.
Yeah.
But do you guys have any closing thoughts?
Yeah, just be nice to people. Be nice to people and open yourself up maybe to helping somebody.
Yes. Open.
If they look like shit, they're probably feeling like shit, to put it really bluntly.
People need blunt. So, I mean, yes.
Yeah.
Well said.
Sharif, you wanna end it?
Well, thank you again for tuning in with us on Mental Health Mondays. Huge thank you to our friend from across the pond, Mr. Paddy's Potato Peelers. You can see his website or his YouTube channel right underneath his name. So
I'll put it in the description.
Yes, and make sure you click on it, you give this man a follow, you watch his videos. They're very entertaining. They're a lot of fun.
May I interject?
Please do.
If you've never watched his videos, he does excellent reviews, but we did Mental Health Monday the first time. Paddy went and followed it up with his own. Go start there. Learn about Paddy, his past. It was eye-opening. It was good. It was powerful. So go start there, and then get into the knives.
Absolutely.
Paddy's an awesome dude, and you'll see him on RJ's lives every Sunday.
I will try to organize. I'd love you two to come on my channel with me and Justin, just for a bit of crack. Nothing too heavy, but it would be nice to get your face into the slip joint world. That maybe I've got quite a lot of slip joint years, and it would be lovely to get that crossover so Mental Health Mondays can go a wee bit further.
Yeah.
Oh, would love that.
I've got a few slip joints, so that'll work.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a slip joint to be a member. You just come over.
Well, it'll help me fit in more.
I don't know anybody who likes slip joints that doesn't have locking knives.
Well, I appreciate you coming on. This was awesome.
Yeah, seriously. Go give this man a follow. Make sure you catch up on his videos. Start exactly where Maddie was saying. And please, guys,
that video too.
Remember, more than anything, we're not mental health professionals here. We're just a bunch of guys who are trying to share, our mental health journeys and the stories of our community. So if you guys do need help and you're in the US, make sure you dial 988 or, seek immediate mental health, professional help, really. And we love you. We appreciate you. Thank you for taking the time to tune in with us. And hopefully we're going to have Mr. Paddy on with us again real soon.
It'll probably be a pleasure.
It will be. But thank you all for watching, and have a good rest of your week.
Yeah.
Keep it real, keep it positive, reach out.